Welcome to another SnapKeep Arcade deck guide. I'm your host Boots, and we're joined once again by Spencer Howland of Constructed Criticism. This week we'll be talking about the latest version of Gruul Midrange that includes some cards that haven't seen much play in Standard before. Spencer, let us know all about Gruul Midrange.
Yeah, so Gruul is back and it's ready to attack, and this time, unlike kind of previous videos that we've done on this deck, we are not talking about a warrior Gruul deck. There are a lot of warriors in this deck. You still have the same Growth Chamber Guardian, Gruul Spellbreaker, you even have Thorn Lieutenants and stuff like that. But this deck is actually a little bit more rampy. So we have 4 Llanowar Elves and 2 Paradise Druids in this version of the deck. And the reason for that is you kind of care about getting out some of your more important spells. Domri Chaosbringer is as good as I had advertised in our previous video. A card that I said I was really excited about, and it's really taken over the Gruul decks. In fact, some Gruul decks don't even play some of the other Planeswalkers. They're just all in on Domri, Anarch, Bolas. With that being said, you get your Llanowar Elves into either your Gruul Spellbreaker or your Anarch Bolas. You get your Paradise Druid into something like a Rekindling Phoenix or a Domri Chaosbringer, and you're really ahead on mana advantage. And the reason that this can happen is because some of the Goblin Chamberlain decks, and specifically Goblin Chamberlain, has kind of started to fall out of favor for a lot of people. They're not liking it as much as they used to, and with less of those running around, you get to play some of those mana creatures that we just talked about. The deck is still just kind of an aggressive mid-range deck, playing lots of powerful 4-drops and Domri Chaosbringer, Ripjaw Raptor, and Rekindling Phoenix, playing some 5-drop All-Stars and a couple Skarrgan Hellkites and a Sarkhan the Masterless, and then just a kind of a suite of removal, whether it's Lava Coil, Shock, or Thrash Threat, or even Domri Anarch Bolas acting as removal. You kind of just get to play bigger creatures than your aggro decks, and then be more aggressive than the control decks of the format, and kind of get in between there. So we have 4 Llanowar Elves, 4 Growth Chamber Guardian, 2 Paradise Druid, 2 Thorn Lieutenant, 4 Gruul Spellbreaker, 1 Living Twister, 1 Ripjaw Raptor, 4 Rekindling Phoenix, and 2 Skarrgan Hellkite. So one of the things that was really important when I was coming up with my Gruul list is that I knew that I wanted to play Domri Chaosbringer in some number. We have 2 in the 75, 1 in the main, 1 in the board, and because of that, I knew that my creature count had to be, pretty high. I couldn't just go all in on Sarkhan the Masterless and things like that. I might even have to play 1 less removal spell that I'd like, things like that, because I really find Domri Chaosbringer to be something that gives you an edge of the mirror, something that gives you an edge against control, and things like that. And so the creatures had to be selected pretty carefully. The other thing that I knew I didn't want to do is go all in on Paradise Druid and Llanowar Elves. I knew I didn't want the full 8 of those because then your mana is just kind of awkward. You get into these situations where you have a ton of mana and not a lot to do with it, and it's not on the form of lands. So I knew because of that I really wanted, about 6 mana creatures and about 24 lands. This lets you sideboard out your mana creatures against Goblin Chainwhirler and still have the appropriate land count to cast things like your 4-drops. So because of that, you kind of have to pick your most important creatures. Growth Chamber Guardian and Gruul Spellbreaker and Rekindling Phoenix are really just the core of the deck. They're the best cards in the deck. Paradise Druid into Rekindling Phoenix or Ripjaw Raptor is going to be a huge play. So I also knew that I wanted it kind of the right number of 4-drops to pay off for playing Paradise Druid. And then Thorn Lieutenant is a card that I had tried in Gruul in the past, but it wasn't really something that I had fallen in love with. But as we look at the format and getting further, and we look at the more mana sources that we're playing, we're going to get to 6 more often. And then that Thorn Lieutenant actually, presents a real threat of activation in this deck that I didn't find that I was doing a lot before. But with multiple Domris and the mana creatures, you really do get to 6 mana enough to make that happen. Living Twister is one of the more interesting cards in the deck because you might see that and you might think to yourself, that's kind of like a weird magic card. The card like this hasn't seen play in years. And you'd be right. But the thing is that the 2/5 body is pretty relevant. It blocks most things in the format. And then, we talked about how many mana sources that you have in your deck, right? You have your Llanowar Elves, you have your Paradise Druid, you have your Planeswalkers that produce mana. And because of that, you have some excess lands you can discard to turn them into removal spells or to remove opposing Planeswalkers that are running around. And Living Twister just is this kind of sweet thing to have access to in your 75 if the game goes long. And just something that Corey Burkhart had recommended to me that I tried out and really liked. There was a list that took second at Grand Prix Kansas City that had 3 of them in the deck, and it's pretty impressive. If the last kind of creature that we haven't talked about yet, there's actually two. We have Ripjaw Raptor, which you can see a lot of lists adopting, some playing two of them, and then also Skarrgan Hellkite. We'll start on Ripjaw Raptor. Ripjaw Raptor is really, really, really good against the aggro decks. If you play this early with a stable and stabilize your board with it, the aggro decks are going to have a really hard killing it while not giving you enough cards to really put the game away. And also, it's pretty good at attacking into things to give, pressure planeswalkers while giving you repeatable advantage. This is a card that a lot of people were excited about when it came out, and they just never saw play. But now that you have Domri, Anarch of Bolas, we did a video talking about Ripjaw Raptor and that card not too long ago. I think the combination really does add up, and it's something that you should be excited about. And then Skarrgan Hellkite is, you actually, because you want the right number of creatures for your Domri Chaos Bringers in your 75, you just can't play the same number of Sarkhans that I was playing in previous lists. And Skarrgan Hellkite also does a better job of pressuring planeswalkers because it comes down and immediately just attacks them. The other thing is when you get to activate that ability, you really get to take over the game. 5/5s are going to often be one of the biggest things in the on the battlefield, and Skarrgan Hellkite does a really good job of just being one of the biggest creatures in play. So the planeswalkers that we've selected for this deck in the main deck are 3 Domri Anarch of Bolas, 1 Domri Chaos Bringer, and 1 Sarkhan the Masterless. So I really have kind of talked about the abilities of the 2 Domris quite a bit. Being able to make your creatures larger was really underrated when this card was, spoiled and people were talking about it. Making it so that your hasty Gruul Spellbreakers already have 4 power is just a pretty big deal. Making it so that when you fight a creature, your Rekindling Phoenix can kill a really big creature. Your Skarrgan Hellkite can kill a really big creature without fight ability on that Domri. The other Domri gives you card advantage, makes your creatures bigger as well. Kind of is just a utility planeswalker in the deck, whereas Sarkhan the Masterless is going to come down and immediately pressure your opponent. If you have another planeswalker in play, they're usually just dead if they don't kill this on the spot. You're going to make a dragon token, and then you're immediately presenting 8 power on the board between Sarkhan and the dragon itself, plus whatever else you already have in play, which in this deck is usually a lot. So it's a pretty sweet one. Also, if you have a Skarrgan Hellkite in play with it, in addition to the dragon, it makes it really hard to attack Sarkhan or you, because the 1 toughness creatures will just die as they do that if you have dragons in play. So, all things adding up, the planeswalkers are a huge part of what makes this deck successful, and also kind of lets you grind out games in different ways depending on which one you're playing. So Collision Colossus is kind of just in this for utility purposes. Being able to, ping a creature with flying, you might see some Hydroid Krasis running around. You want to be able to deal with that. And then also it's just like a pretty good thing to keep your deck aggressive and keep your opponents on their toes. We have 2 in the 75. I think that's correct somewhere. Some lists have gone down to 0 already just because of the decrease in Hydroid Krasis and things like that. But if you look at some of the planeswalkers and things like that, I really think that being able to give your creature a large power and toughness boost while attacking into some of the boards in standard is really powerful. So Collision Colossus just makes the list for me. Thrash is one of my favorite cards. I just think that it's correct to be able to just deal with planeswalkers immediately. One of the things that you can see a lot of Gruul is doing is they're adopting Lightning Strike. But when you think about some of the ways that Gruul loses, it's going to be to opposing Rekindling Phoenixes. It's going to be to Wild Growth Walkers. And when you think about that, you really want things that are going to kill those things dead. So Lava Coil becomes really important over something like Lightning Strike, meaning that if I want more things that deal with planeswalkers, I'm going to need something like Thrash Threat in the deck. I think the biggest tips and tricks with this deck, there's a couple. One of the sweetest ones is Gruul Spellbreaker. So this actually happened to me playing this deck just 2 days ago, where my opponent played a Chandra. I played a Gruul Spellbreaker and attacked the Chandra, and my opponent was forced to deal the damage, all 8 damage that Chandra dealt somewhere else, the 4 damage that Chandra dealt somewhere else, either dealing themselves 4 or killing their Chandra. They chose to kill their Chandra, so my Gruul Spellbreaker got to become a 4/4, and because I have Hexproof, they can't target me, and then my Rekindling Phoenix was able to take it out. And that's a pretty cool interaction with Gruul Spellbreaker. One of the other things you want to do is know when to play your Spellbreakers as 3/3s and 4/4s. That's matchup dependent, and a lot of matchups it's actually correct to just play the 4/4, because you want it to be able to attack throughout the entire game, not just the turn it comes into play, because what happens is there are large creatures in this format. You know, you got a Living Twister in play. Your opponent plays a Rekindling Phoenix. You want your Gruul Spellbreaker to be able to attack in those situations to, you know, trade with a shock or something off of that Rekindling Phoenix, or be able to, you know, attack into different things, especially in things like the mono white matchup. You might think, well, like, I can just get in damage and race them. You're probably never going to race them, and the 4/4 is more important. The same thing is true against things like, you know, mono red aggro. You actually don't want to make the 3/3 because then it comes into lightning strike range. You want to pressure their Lava Coils and make sure that they don't have enough for your Gruul Spellbreaker, your Rekindling Phoenix, your Skarrgan Hellkites, and your pumped Growth Chamber Guardians. You want to make sure that those removal spells, they only have a limited number of them, and they don't have enough to take care of your large creatures, and then you'll just win the game as you draw those creatures that they can't deal with. You know, I think that just remembering when to sideboard out your Llanowar Elves and your Paradise Druids against Chainwhirler, when to play your Goblin Spellbreaker, or your Gruul Spellbreakers, and how big to make them, it's going to be really important. But other than that, the deck is sweet, it's fun, and let's talk about the sideboard. So in the sideboard, we have one more Shock, 2 Direfleet Daredevil, 1 more Lava Coil, 1 more Collision Colossus, 1 Sorcerous Spyglass, 3 Legion Warboss, 2 Tibalt the Instigator, 2 Thrashing Brontodon, 1 Domri Chaosbringer, and 1 Vivian Reed. And the first thing that we would notice is that this sideboard looks very different from Gruul sideboards from not too long ago, because there are no Cindervines in it. And the reason there's no Cindervines in it is because people have decided that they actually can't play the Taking Turns deck. And the reason that they've come to that conclusion is because Teferi is just too much of a problem, and too many people are playing that. So when you don't have to play 4 Cindervines in your board, it really opens up a lot of space for different things. Thrashing Brontodon is better against aggro decks while still being serviceable in that matchup. You have you know, different cards that you can do. You can play more Planeswalkers. You can play that Vivian Reed out of the board. Things like that you really didn't get to do before, because you were forced to play these Cindervines to make a really bad game 1 matchup really good for you in the post board, because it swung the matchup so much. Now that the matchup's non-existent, you get to play more cards. One of the things that you'll notice also is there's a shock over thing. You know, in the previous versions you might play Shivan Fire. The truth is there's so many Planeswalkers running around. Many of them make 2/2s, things like that. That shock is just kind of more utility right now, as it takes out opposing Planeswalkers, that I've decided to do that. Direfleet Daredevil is something that moved from the side to the main deck. It's not something that you get to bring in against decks that play something like Cast Down and really be happy with it in those matchups, whereas before it was something you were boarding out a lot, and now you get to board it in, making it a really high impact card in those moments. Lava Coil, we already talked about. You want to bring that in when you're playing against, you know, the Mirror or other Phoenixes, or especially when you play against something that has Wild Growth Walker, because Wild Growth Walker staying on the board is going to be the easiest way for you to lose. But if you can use this, you can also exile the Wild Growth Walker so that they can't get it back with you know, Command the Dreadhorde or things like that. Sorcerous Spyglass is a utility thing to bring in its different Planeswalker decks. Legion Warboss makes you a little bit faster in certain matchups, as well as being able to pressure different Planeswalkers, things like that. Tibalt stops those pesky life gain things that might bug you in certain matchups, and is just kind of an overall good card. And Domri Chaosbringer and Vivian Reed lets you grind out different types of matchup and pressure your opponents in different ways while interacting with them with Vivian Reed and things like that. This is probably the deck that I'll be playing at a you know, big tournament this weekend. We have a this is what I would play if I was going to Vegas for the MCQ. Instead, I'll be playing a local qualifier for the West Coast Championship Series, and I'm really excited about playing this deck. And yeah, this is definitely the deck that I would be playing moving forward.
Thank you so much to Spencer Howland of Constructed Criticism for another deck guide. You can check out all of his amazing work at constructedcriticism.com. If you like this video, please subscribe to SnapKeep Arcade and hit that bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video. This has been Boots with SnapKeep Arcade. Thanks for watching.